Well, hello and welcome back. My name's Kieron Seamons. This is my inky world. This is where we're going to have some fun and draw and do some inky stuff and have some fun. So, today's question is, if you're a master of the dip pen, which is this beast here, if you're a master of the dip pen, why would you go to use a brush pen? Why would you go to use a brush pen to do your comic? Wow! I'm glad you asked, because there's a whole world that you don't know about a brush pen. So, let's get into it. Why are we using the brush pen instead of the dip pen for our comic? Let's find out. Well, okay, beautiful people, we are going to get in and we are going to talk. And as we talk, I am going to do a rough sketch, something you very rarely see me do. And that is because the comic that I'm working on at the moment, and that I have been working on for about 10 years. I have had multiple books up on the subject of this delightful little bear, and it is something that I have loved and enjoyed for years. And over the time, I have kind of worked on other books, and it is kind of been put on the back shelf for a while. And the reason is basically that it was becoming so demanding, and it just became a huge undertaking. And we started to do the cartoon version of it, which became a cartoon television show, and everything became so kind of it got very exciting, I mean, to be honest, it really became very exciting. And one of the sad parts about it is that you really need, if you're doing a comic, you need to do it very regular. You need to be very regular, and you need to really build up your skills as an artist across your years of doing it. Now, I'm putting in a very gentle, rough sketch because at the time when I was working on this comic, I came from the animation side of the world. And in animation, everything is roughed out, everything is planned to absolute perfection for every line that you put down. And that, in turn, was probably part of the reason why the panda and its whole creation, over the years became such a huge undertaking, was because everything was so planned and everything was worked out and everything was I even get to the it's a very strange feeling stepping back to it, because when I step back, I step into a different me, a different artist completely. I have just drawn something that I'm unhappy with. Now, when I'm using ink and I'm putting down splash ink, everything is perfect, instantly perfect. And I feel so excited by it. And the adrenaline that pumps through my body is like rocket fuel, So I get to a point where have to think very quickly. And when I'm doing my comic, my second brain is still awake. My first brain seems to fall asleep or get overly picky, whichever. And I am actually rubbing out the arm that I've just drawn. Now, I usually don't correct my work. I don't. I love to catch everything in the moment. And these days of animation have made me rather picky. And I have quite often with the comic, I will go through and I will do poses and I will do poses and I will correct poses and I'll refine poses and I will drive myself to the point of madness of trying to get that perfect pose and that perfect finger in the right place, and that is exactly what I'm getting back into now. I'm getting back into thinking about drawing. And this is something that I'm going to try to break over the period of reworking the Panda comic. This idea that I don't need this planning pencil, this blue pencil where I draw a rough plan for everything. That over the years now I have just learned to draw it perfect, to feel it perfect. And I don't need to plan it all out. But when I'm going back into an old style, I feel like, oh, that leg's a little bit fat. Oh, those fingers are too long. And I get into this madness of perfection. And perfection is only probably for me. Other people might look at it and say, oh, it's a lovely drawing. So, this pose in this story is the fact that he is sitting with a fishing rod, and the fishing rod is going up to the sky. Part of the joke, part of the fun in this story. But there was a particular pose that I wanted. And I'm still not even sure if this is the correct pose. But for this demonstration, I will go through. I will probably finish it and hate it and have to redraw it. And that's exactly why the comic got to such a mind bend that you're drawing panels. I can't remember where I've put the comic book now, but you're drawing panels that are probably about this big, and you're doing so much detail in it, and you're trying to be so perfect about everything. And I'm trying to break away from that. I'm trying to go back in time to a comic style and a comic creation, and to get back into this new me that can draw anything without planning it. So I'm trying to marry those two me's at the moment. I'm trying to get into this confident new me, back to my animation perfection days. So bear with me as I go through this brush. It's an old Staedtler brush. It's very, very old. And it's a dual tip one. But it was I found this sensitivity with these brushes, even though they do leak. Look at them, they're leaking all over the place and you get terrible black fingers. The sensitivity of it at the time worked. So this is the old me drawing now. So I might find that I'm drawing something that I don't like it, or I need to fix it, or so. I mean, I'm very curious to see how things will happen. So the beauty of this this kind of brush pen was the sensitivity of it, and I loved the fact that I can kind of blob it and push it and thick and thin it in the same way that line has come across there. And that's a beautiful line. It's a very beautiful natural line. And what I liked about this line was the fact that this kind of this kind of thick and thin of the line gave this fur texture to my bear. And I absolutely loved that idea that a inky pen could give me this sensitivity of okay, so there's another thing. Back in my old days, it's like in animation, when I would draw a line, I would kind of like hold my breath. So I go, perfect. Perfect. And I feel like when I was breathing, I would feel like those minor gusts of air going through your body are shaking the line. And it's quite incredible to kind of go back and try and talk while I'm drawing this old style that was so delightful at the time. And I loved this character, and I still love this character, and I have got huge plans for this character for this year. To get him back into to being a part of my life, and he was a huge part of my life, and a huge love of my life as well. And that's a very nice thing to be able to say as an artist, that you can actually draw something that you love so much that becomes a part of your life. Now, the one thing that I was feeling when I designed this panda, that he really does not look like a panda in any way, except he kind of resembles a bear. But apart from that, he had these huge big ears, which are more like a fox or something like that. It really, and he had his little bobble tail, which again, the pandas don't have a bobble tail, but I loved the idea, and I drew it that way, and in my mind, that's what a panda should have, and that's part of the creation, and it's something that you can kind of have like a, that's kind of like artist freedom, and I am starting to feel this excitement already by this slow, detailed process of drawing this character, and I'm very, very, very surprised that I'm almost getting emotional about feeling how I felt so many years ago about just drawing a character. And I'm very, very, very excited to see what will happen this year with him, and indeed the comics. And as you can see, he's starting to have this beautiful kind of furry texture to him already, and I'm very, 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 very enjoying that. And also the hands. I loved drawing his hands, and I would kind of almost in that animator challenge, as we get into, we kind of get to that thing of doing a pose that is so complicated. You're doing these type of dimensions and this type of poses with your fingers and stuff like that, just so you could draw the hand in that position. And all these kind of mental challenges would come across. And so by having this character with such big chunky fingers gave so much of a challenge. How would he do this with such big chunky fingers? It's almost like you're cutting the ends off your fingers, and that is a panda's hand. He's kind of like these kind of like little stumpy things. So it became this kind of challenge, which I loved. So I'm going to draw a fishing reel now. In some kind of way that I don't know. I mean, I love this whole kind of concept. And the panda. Okay, so we're getting down to his back, and he's sitting on this bush, which we're going to put a couple of little indentations into the bush. And this whole world of this panda kind of seemed to grow over the years, and the more it grew, the more kind of addictive it became. It became this kind of, for me, a magical creature. And I remember going up to some part in China. Obviously, I worked in China for many years, and we had gone up to this place. I think it's called Chongqing. Please correct me if I am wrong. And we had gone to see these pandas, and it's kind of like it's a breeding center for pandas, and it was just an eye opener. Seeing these things in a class of bear. Though I think there is some discussion about whether a panda is on the cat family or the bear family. But anyway, he's called a panda bear. And he had such playfulness about him. You would see these pandas kind of climbing up a tree, and they'd be eating something, and then they would just fall out of a tree or something. They would just kind of like roll down the hill, like doing. And I just fell in love. I mean, if I could probably say what is my favorite animal on the whole earth, except for Mr. Miro, of course. What is my favorite animal in the whole earth? I would have to say panda, and I love it. And I absolutely love these creatures. This is the tip of his tail. Tip of his thigh, sorry. His stomach. As they are so childish in a way. And I remember we were kind of like there because of the studio, and we had gone up to visit these pandas, and we were talking with some of the people there that are saying that part of their problem is that pandas are so kind of like childish and cute and delightful. They're so happy about life and eating and falling over and doing silly things. And this lady was kind of explaining that because of this delightful character of a panda, they don't really get into like dating and having children, and they're really not interested in any kind of sex side of the world. They're just having fun. And it fitted so much into the comic that I had already drawn about this. I mean, originally it was kind of like this kind of like a kind of orphan, and I kind of set it up as like he was an orphan, and that's why he was kind of like finding out about the world through the eyes of this goose, such. And let me just finish this pen. And but actually, they are very, very childish in their own right. They are very, very childish creatures, and as such, they are delightful. And I could have spent all day there. I could have spent all day just sitting there and soaking up these huge creatures. I mean, they're very large bears, and apparently they are a bear. You will get bitten. But I almost kind of feel like sometimes they're so childish that they forget that they're bears. And they have this very kind of childish approach to their whole way of life. And for me, it was delightful. I could have sat there all day and just watched them. So that kind of inspired me to kind of have this this kind of this panda who's got these childish thoughts about life, and he has a very silly view on everything, and I love that. I love that. And in this, for example, in this one, he is fly fishing. The goose has kind of told him about how the best way to catch a fish is, the best fishing is fly fishing, and he's fishing, but he has a rod with a line that is going up into the air, and he is trying to catch a fly. Excuse me. I'm going to sneeze in a minute. I can feel it. Oh, excuse me. So, this lovely conflict arrives between a very childish panda who is fishing to catch a fly, from this very highly educated goose who will come through the thing, and he'll be saying, "Hey kid, how you doing, kid? What? Hey kid, what you up to?" type of thing, And he kind of sees that he knows everything about everything, and quite often the panda will kind of stump him with some kind of childish view of the world, and he has no answer for it. And I love that. I love the fact that sometimes this goose is speechless by his childish view of the world. Now, of course, the only way to catch a fly is with cheesecake. So, this is just one pose. It's a repeating pose. But this is only one pose in this comic. So, you can see how these comics can take hours and days and months to complete, because I would get so obsessive about the poses and the colouring and such like, as artists do. I mean, it's not an unnatural thing. It's a very natural thing. As an artist, you want to be perfect about all those little details. And this was my love, and he was indeed a love. I drew him for hours and days on end, and I also got to the point of enjoying these poses and enjoying the drawing so much that I wouldn't be drawing it in a small comic strip like this. I wanted each page to be a work of art. So I would draw these huge panels and reduce them down and to put them in, and they'd all be painted up like watercolor edges, and so delightful. And I put so much love into it. But, as with always with artists, one of the problems is that if you're doing something that is so beautiful and it's taking time, there's this question of money. And, I would probably say that most artists, the one word that they don't really have in their vocabulary very much is money. And artists use words like love and passion and excitement and desire and perfection. We use words like that. We very rarely mention the word money. And as such, the panda became a work of love and passion and hearts and sugar and candies and all those lovely words, but it never really made any money. And that forces many artists in many occasions it forces artists to change and to get to this point of life of changing your drawings, changing your artwork for this, what was the word the guy used earlier? Content creator. To become a content creator. And to become somebody that is trying to sell products to make your life work. Beautiful. Lovely. I love this. And these flowers are just a flower style, and obviously in the story he eats these purple flowers, and that's why he turns purple. And he's not a regular black panda, he is a purple panda. And it was because he would, in his kind of like learning about the world and life, he would eat these. And I drew flowers for hours to be able to go in a line, in a line, in a line, in a line, and it joins up. And so many times at the beginning I would draw the flower, round and round and round, it doesn't match. You know, I don't know if I got a piece of paper I could just scribble something on. So in a way that, if you can see the camera there, you're kind of going, you're going around, and you're going around, and you're going around, and you're going around, and you, oh, and then it doesn't join up, you see. And it became a mental problem that I would be sitting there and I would be going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh no, it doesn't match up. What's happened? And it became this thing of like, I'm going to practice for hours and hours and hours and hours, and I'd be sitting there with the radio on or the TV on or something, and I'd be sitting going run, to perfect the simple thing of a flower. And that was, you know, I think that one of the things that is not very good for artists these days is that we have so much around us. We have iPads and telephones and TVs and radios and thousands of TV channels and thousands of millions of videos that are going on to distract this brain, to distract our view, to distract our creativity. And of course, there would be a framed, which I will leave till later on. I will draw some kind of, and also the part of this location was the fact that I had seen Guilin, and Guilin had these. I mean, I'm not even sure if pandas live in any area like Guilin, but China was all about these huge rocky mountains that go into the sky. And I loved that about China. I loved that about this whole idea that that's what China was. And actually, when I went to China, I went to a little dusty town, and I was like, where are those great big teeth-shaped mountains? No, we don't have them here. What? And so when I drew my panda story, that was kind of like my vision of China. My vision of what China kind of looks like, and what China should be. And again, it's an imaginary place in my comic. It's and there is my delightful panda, and it's drawn with a brush pen, and the brush pen has it has a beautiful natural bounce to it. It has a very, very, very magical kind of soft tip to it and a thick tip to it. And it gives you this lovely flow through a brush pen, which you don't get with the hardness of a dip pen. The dip pen is very hard and it needs to be pushed. And the whole point of pushing the dip pen excites me. It excites me, the fact that I have to push it to get the effects that I want. Whereas with a brush pen is something that is so gentle and soft and patient. And it's a very different character. And they're a very different artist. And it's a very different artwork. It's a very different artwork. And that is today's drawing. And it's going to be part of one of the comics coming up. And it's one of the panels. And it will be a panel of 10 panels. And this will be one of. So you can see how much time will go into it. And as always, they are in my little notebook there, my little sketch. And there he is sitting up there with his fishing rod. And my notes in there about the pose and what. And of course, once the ink dries, I will go through and take away my blue pencil, and it will look like I've drawn it magically, without any construction, without any pre-plan. Whereas indeed with the panda, there's a lot of planning, and there's a lot of thought, and there's a lot of sensitivity with it. And it's a very different style to my usual inky style, but still, it's a beautiful style, and I absolutely love it. And I will be going on to do a lot more of it. And if you do enjoy this style also, if you do enjoy me drawing out the poses for my comic, because a comic will kind of take a little bit more time, and it's a little bit of a slower project. But if it's something that interests you, please let me know. I would love to. I'm very happy to open up a comic posing set of videos where you can see how I'm going through and doing all these different poses in different positions and to build it up as a comic. So if you are interested in it, let me know. Let me know your thoughts. And let me know what you think about today's drawing. A very different one, but still beautiful, right? Thank you very much for being here. Thank you very, very, very much. If you would like to put a donation onto the page, please do. And if you want to subscribe and see more videos like this, more videos about drawing and the passion and the love of drawing, hit that subscribe button and come back. Send me a comment. I would love to hear from you. See you very, 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 very soon. Bye-bye.